Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about what have I been reading and what I've read so far. Today is the middle of the month, so usually I try to make an update for this in this time. And what have I read and what I'm reading. In this month I thought I was going to read around. I have picked 11 or 12 books. Um, some shorter, some bigger, but unfortunately, time has not been kind to me, and I'm not reading as much as I hoped. I did finish 6 books so far, well, five plus one manga, and I'm currently reading 4 other novels. So, let's start with what I've been reading and so on. The first book I read was Conan. It's just called Conan. This is the first book, although it says here third because this is a reprint. In the first initial print, um, this was the first book. Then this they were remade, and and this one became the third book. The first one became um, another one, which I don't think that's correct. Basically, uh, this book here it has 6 stories. No, sorry, 7 stories because there are one introduction chapter about the Hyperborean age, part one. Then there is a part two and part three. There are some a letter from Robert Howard to another person where he explains a bit about the world. Then there are the 7 stories. um, 3 of them are completely done by Howard. They are basically they are what they did here was try to make the book chronologically. So uh, here is a map, and basically you can draw. And I have another book with that drawn because I have 2 versions of this book where they went from east place to downwards and to onwards and so on. So it kind of makes sense to make this publishing as a chronological. Hobart didn't write that way. He wrote older version of Conan, then a newer, and so on. So they tried to bring this up. Then the guys here, which is the Els Prague, De Camp, and Lynn Carter, they also tried to recreate, not recreate, but to finish some manuscripts, some notes that Howard had about some of the stories that he never had this chance to read it. To finish. And so there are one, two, three, four, sorry, 2 stories that are mixed between Howard and Carter and Howard and the Camp, and then there are 2 extra stories that are completely done by Carter and the Camp, um, and they make sense to be honest. Um, there are a couple of good story here, but to be honest, I was not the most. Um, I was not. It was not the best experience I had with Conan in terms of story wise. And interesting, one of my favorite stories is one done by Carter and Howard. Overall, it's a nice introduction to Robert E. Howard. So you can't go wrong there. The second book I read was the first volume of manga, volume cut 14 of Claymore, and it deals with the ending of the a child weapon, and then there are 2 short stories, if you can call it extra. They call it extra scenes, but they are mainly short stories. They are introductions to characters that are going to appear in later or previously stuff. It was very cool to see this tale, um, although this was not my favorite of the bunch, to be honest. Our main protagonists from the earlier books are now a bit on the backstage. Maybe that's the reason I didn't enjoy as much, but overall, it's a good book. Then I read The Sound of Midnight. This is our novel by Charles L. Grant, and Charles L. Grant it's what today it's called Quiet Horror. I don't believe there was like a team from back in the days, but this is undoubtedly a slow paced novel, as all of his novels, to be honest. And that's why you go to Goodreads and you see bad reviews about being slow, slow building the momentum. And I don't consider this novel to be a horror per se. So basically, you've got this woman who has a toy shop, and then a kid enters the shop, buys something, says something, and leaves. Afterwards, he is found dead. She tries to help him, that and she was very traumatized by that situation. And then there is a mystery involving the death of that person, and other people involved in that family, and another family that is focused on this point. There are two families, and they start killing. And the the vast majority of the book is a slow-paced novel, the thriller, if you can call it that, or mystery, because there is not much of horror. There are some elements that you kind of fear, eerie situation, like some kind of something is wrong. You know that something is wrong, but you can't really point out what is wrong. And it is what Charles L. Grant does. If you read the first book, don't expect anything different from this one. Probably even slower pace. I call it a mystery novel with some horror elements. A slow paced mystery to horror elements. That's what I call it because that's what it is. It's not pure horror. Yes, there are some freaky elements. Not freaky in terms of. There are some eerie moments, but not that vibe of horror that you know, like Stephen King or or the other books I'm going to talk afterwards. Overall, I did enjoy more than the first book. I gave it a 77 out of 100. And immediately after finishing this book, I thought I want to read the third book. Not because it was I loved, but because I like the feeling. I like how Charles L. Grant writes. This is it. I really love how he writes this town, and everything is in this town of Oxford Station. And there is here a moment where we are briefly told about another characters that are from the previous novel, which is kind of interesting. Do you have to read the first novel? No, absolutely not. You don't have to read anything because they are individual novels set in the same town. So you kind of see the same names, the same um, people, or the same places. They go to the library where is the first novel set. So you know that kind of stuff, but it's not important. The Creeper, I Am Shine. So I already made a review about this book, and I want to be blunt here. I enjoyed this novel. I enjoyed so much that I want to read the second novel by him in the next few months, and I've got all of his novels. Unfortunately, the ending blew it up. And if you go to Goodreads or even Amazon, you can see people discontent with the ending. So the author here tries to bring something interesting, like a cult in modern times of some some being that is hunting and it kill you if you see it 3 times, and so people live afraid of it, live their lives afraid of it. And there are you have two characters. This is a very fast-paced thriller horror. I'm going to go to thriller because of the elements of going around and so on, but it's more horror, fast-paced horror, and you get some feelings about something is wrong. And this one, you see it wrong. You see, it's not like the Charles L. Grant that you know that something wrong, but you can't really put your nose on it. Here, you can see it because the, the fear is a character. Like that's how I feel it. Um, and it's an interesting novel. I mean, I really love it. I read uh, this book is 311 pages. I read in under 24 hours, so I love it. The problem was that the ending didn't match the vibe of the book. And I'm not going to spoil it here. If you want to see spoilers, go to Goodreads, my Goodreads, or go to the other video, although it's a bit long and strange. Um, but it's a interesting novel, and I know I believe the most hard part for not an action or fantasy or something like that, and or novelist, because fantasy you expect the good guys to win, you know. Sci-fi usually the same thing, but in horror you can expect you can have to sometimes end in a good way, or you can end it in a bad way. In bad way, I mean the bad guys win. You know, that's something that horror can bring that other genres usually don't. It's not a rule, but sometimes it can be like this. There are some horror novels that end badly. The good guy loses. And here, I thought that he is going one way and he went another way. And it completely shatters my experience on the novel itself. Yeah, but you can see. Sorry. Sorry. You can see that my review on Goodreads. The last book I read and I finished on the 15th, on the 14th, I made a review as well. It's on here on book. It's The God of Razors by Joe R. Lansdale. This is a short, well, this is a novel with some short stories. I review only the novel in my video. Sorry, and but the remaining stories I'm going to review it now. So, The Night Runners is a tale about, well, you've got a lot of you have two main characters at least. Um, and you follow a woman and you follow a young boy. A woman and a partner and a young boy and this team of misfits. So the story is told in three timelines. So you've got it. Sorry, in two timelines. You got it now, and then we jump to the past 1 year prior, and then you're going to jump to now. And the reason that snippet is there is to bring something to what happened before. Uh, this is a woman that has suffered. Um, I don't want to say the word here, but it suffered something very. She was abused by a young teen who later is committed suicide. And the first part is basically handling how she handled that part and how her husband tried to help on that part and how he feels about it and how she feels about it and so on. And at the same time you have introduction about this other boy and the experience that he has because he was part of that gang and what he's what he's thinking about this stuff. And then we jump 1 month, 1 year earlier, probably sometimes and then there's a flashback within the flashback how this boy met this other boy, the one that abused her, and how they deal with that situation. And it's very interesting to see these interactions. It builds something that about this character and about how this came to be. It gives some interesting backstory to all of them, even to the woman and the man. And then finally, we have like the last part of this novel. It's the confrontation. This is a very good novel. I adored Joe R. Lansdale novel. I can see it being one of the people have been told it's one of the best horror stories out there, and it shows. When it has to be graphic, it's graphic. When it has to be on the back door, it is, and it's never really graphic in terms of the violence toward women, or but in terms of the violence that he commits, the killings. Sometimes it's graphic, more on the psychological side than physical side. Another thing that's interesting is that no one is safe. This is something that is very good to know, to see in horror. One of the most boring parts of a novel is that a writer writes stuff and says, "This is um, this is the main character, and she's going to be fine." Of course, nobody tells that, but you know that this character is going to be fine. And here is an example of a character that you know that's not going to be fine. The same thing with I Am Shine. It's never hinted that it's going to be fine. It can be or not. So this is how you write good horror. And this book has interior illustrations, and they also give vibes to the novel, which are very cool. And the writer here, the artist here deserves really a praise, because this is very good, and it was Glenn Shadbourne. It's the name of the interior illustration. So it's very cool. I really enjoyed this novel. One of my favorite horror novels of all time, without any doubt. The remaining short stories, well, you've got some that are connected to this story in terms of this being God, but the vast majority are not. And you can read almost every short story without any previous knowledge on the novel Night Runners. If I want to say which one was my favorite short story, was Not from Detroit, which is a couple of old people dealing with death. Um, King of Shadows is very good as well. It's very dark, very fast paced, and that's it. These were my favorite two short stories. So yeah, I really enjoyed this novel. So then, what I'm reading currently right now, I'm reading The Court of Dark. She Courts Darkness. This is I'm on page 121 of 300 pages by Morgan Stange. This is the second novel on the trilogy and the third book on the series. And the first one was more on the side of Samantha. Here is more on the side of Victoria, which was very cool to see this. Then we've got The Steel on Target by Kevin Ekenberry. I'm currently page 260 of 482, so halfway there. Um, I have not read this month Midnight Mass or F. Paulison, not because I'm not enjoying, but because, well, other books proceeds. And I'm also in touch since the holidays the novellas by Brian Lumley, because they are novellas, they are very big, and because I thought that reading Brian Lumley novellas, you have to read one, wait, another. It's not like a short story collection, you know. Until the end of the month, I really hope to finish all of these, and I have two more books on my schedule, which is Anthony M. Strong, called Sanctuary, which is the second novel on the John Decker thriller. This is probably if I'm going to enjoy more and I'm going to buy the remaining books or not. And then the first book on Phil Rickman's The Wine of Angel. This is my first 500 plus page book that I'm going to read. Although you can argue that Still on Target, it's 500 pages. It's not for 483, so it's almost 500. So it's a good month. Unfortunately, it is what I have time to read. Yeah, but the my reading plan is not going as I hoped. But all in all, it's a good month. I mean, this is my I have been playing some games, and my child is now away with the Boy Scouts for a week. Maybe I can play a bit more. Let's see. Um, I hope you enjoy this video and see you soon.